Welcome to Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. We will see you in about 45 seconds or so. Make sure that you are subscribing to our channels, our LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Turn on notifications, and we are very excited to be here with you. It's almost time, about 30 more seconds. Make sure to grab your notebook and pen so you can jot down notes along the way, because at the end of the show, you could have an opportunity to ask our guests questions so we can dive a little deeper into these topics. And here we go. Welcome to Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. All right. Thank you all for joining Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. We're spending some time today with Joey Henderson. Joey, how's it going?
Good.
Bill Northrup from Northpark Innovations. How are you, sir?
Good, Clifton.
So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about our A3 flammable refrigerants. Now, when I first put the post out on LinkedIn and through the email links, I said the word flammable without saying the word highly flammable, right? Because if you think back about technicians, especially us refrigeration technicians, just a few years ago, we would look at refrigerants as they were either flammable or they were non-flammable. And that's really never actually been the case. Almost all of our refrigerants have had some type of a flammability, depending on how their concentrations were in the mixtures with oxygen and the ignition source around them. So that is all really starting to develop around us. So even myself, I have to be very careful when I'm talking about non-flammable, mildly flammable, and highly flammable refrigerants. So the reason we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this, because many of us instructors were technicians out in the field, and we probably didn't have a chance to work on our A3 or R290 refrigerants, but they are here and they are really coming along in the amount of equipment that we're seeing those in. Well, why are we seeing that? Well, it really comes back to all of these changes that we have in refrigerants, and especially this HFC phase down, right? So we're aware that HFCs are being phased down over a period of time. We have a lot of new refrigerants, especially our A2Ls, but we have things like A3s that have been around for over 100 years. We actually started using our A3 highly flammables back in the late 1800s. We moved away from them because they were flammable, right? So we moved into other refrigerants that were less flammable, what we hoped were going to be non-flammable, non-toxic refrigerants, our CFCs. Well, so we have come full circle. We're moving back into our flammable and now mildly flammable refrigerants as well. So what does that look like? That's a really big transition for our HFCs, which we would consider our traditional, our legacy refrigerants that most of us know, our 404s, our 410s, they're all just going away, and probably quicker than anticipated. So we know that January 1st of 2024, another great big drop in the HFC production. So we're going to see cost of some of those HFCs going up. They're going to escalate, and we're going to be moving into other options pretty quick. So we want to be prepared for those. We're going to see A2Ls. We're going to see a lot more A3s. We've seen a lot of them already hit the market, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. So when we look at our refrigerants, our A3s are like our R290, our R600. These are highly flammable refrigerants that we've dabbed with for about a decade with our small coolers, right? We only had a low amount of refrigerant we can use, so we only had small coolers. So a lot of our two-door pop coolers, I've seen those in the grocery stores back in 2016 when we really started seeing those hit. Right? So we now have 4 different classifications that we're primarily focusing on. Our A1s, which are a lot of those traditional refrigerants that we knew. We also have our A2s, A2Ls, and these A3s that we're here to talk about today, and how well they are, especially our R290. It is a really good refrigerant. It is highly flammable, though, especially in comparison to all of our other refrigerants. Like our A2Ls, people talk about them being flammable. They're like, I hate that it's even called mildly flammable. They're not very flammable. They're very, very slightly flammable, but they get the term mildly, right? Takes a ton of energy to even ignite them. Whereas like our A3s, the 600 and the R290, doesn't take a lot of energy and they burn very quickly. So we have standards that test that. So if we look at 34 2019, so that is a standard that we're using, part of that ASTM E681 classification, so that we can test refrigerants to put them into their correct classes, right? So class 1, ones that we're very commonly used to, no flame propagation. Class 2, class 2L, and then these class 3s, which are incredibly flammable, right? And so we've got a lot of information on those. If you're wanting to learn more about in depth on those, we've got programs like our combined hydrocarbon and low GWP program that ESCO provides. So I'll leave this in here. So if you want to QR any codes for that to be able to come back to those resources, and even the instructor resources for training on these, especially the low GWP. It's like a 204 slide presentation you can use in your classrooms. It's got a lot of resources on it. All things available through ESCO. So when we get into talking about training on these, we just have to understand that they are very different. A lot of changes versus our A1s and our A2Ls, okay? So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to see new markings on our equipment, right? We're going to start seeing a lot more of these flammable markings, even on the A2L stuff. We're going to see flammable markings. So next time you go to a Costco, just walk back to the part where they have all the window air conditioners. You'll see that almost everything in there is already R32 with these labels. I went a couple weeks ago, shot a bunch of photos. They had one 404 system in there, one little bitty guy, right? Little bitty wine cooler, and everything else was, it's already shifted over into R32s. So be aware, we're going to see a lot more labels. We're going to see markings on our pieces of equipment. We're going to see a variety of oils that could possibly be used. Our HCs are good with mineral oil. They're good with alkyl benzene, good with POE oil. We're not seeing that registered with our PVE oils, though, but we do use the POE. And there's concentration limits that we'll see on some of our new decals too, especially for equipment used indoors, and a lot of specialty tools, right? We're talking highly flammable refrigerants. A lot of our existing tools are not going to be utilized with this. And Joey, you're telling me a little bit about even on the recovery side that we're looking at the recovery cylinders very differently than we have with our traditional refrigerants.
Yeah, that's right. We know that's 80% by volume. And right now, of course, in the small systems, we don't have to recover these at all, right? I
No,
mean,
absolutely not
you,
yet.
you can let it go.
Yes.
But I'm thinking that when we get into down the road, you've got apartment complexes, you've got multiple property owners that can reuse that refrigerant in other systems.
Yes.
That's when they might want to recover it and hold it and use it somewhere else. Well, if you look at the specific volume of R290, you can only put a little over 10 pounds of R290 in a 30-pound cylinder,
And no
and that
oxygen.
is 80% full by volume.
Right.
So it's not by weight, it's by volume.
By volume.
So, those are something that we're going to have to get used to. And,
Yep.
they'll probably be just a cookie cutter chart for it. But
Exactly.
basically, yeah, you can't put any more than 10 pounds as opposed to 410A. You can get up there in the 25, 26-pound range.
Exactly. So, we're going to have some things that are going to change. I've already seen some A3 rated recovery units, though we're not recommending for recovery of A3s unless it's in a vacuumed canister and we're pulling directly from the unit into the canister. So there's more specifications out there on that through the hydrocarbon training program. And you always want to stay up to date with where the industry is heading in this direction, right? So the AHRI Flammable Refrigerants Research Initiative keeps us up to date on all of these different refrigerants and the applications that they have. So if you need a quick link to get over to that, I'm going to throw this in as well. So that'll get you over to the AHR Flammable Refrigerants Research Initiative. Very good resource. That's where a lot of the content from ESCO comes from, making sure that it is up to current standards. So when we talk about the equipment that is already utilizing 290, there's a lot of products out there that people aren't aware. We started using like the little two-door pop coolers in the checkout lanes at your grocery stores and at the gas stations. Like I said, we've been doing those since I seen my first ones in 2016, and I know that they were out before then because True was one of the first ones to come out, and they had the first training program on these R290 systems. But now we're seeing higher levels of refrigerant being able to be used, and I just talked to Lear last week, and Lear has now converted over their ice chests. So those ice chests we're used to seeing sitting outside the grocery stores and convenience markets, right? Those are all going to R290 as well. And we've seen ice machines. So a lot of our commercial ice machines, I've seen Manitowoc already use an R290 in their ice machines, and a lot of our, packaged and refrigerant, cases that we see. So R290 is here to stay. So we have to be prepared to work on those. And as instructors, we have to make sure that we can discuss the similarities and differences with refrigerants that we hopefully are already very comfortable with. Now, the thing that is really interesting about this, and we'll kind of dive into this on one of our new trainers from Northpark here in a second as well, a lot of places around the world are already implementing R290 into comfort cooling systems. So when I put that post, I put refrigeration and air conditioning. Boy, I got some, hey, wait a minute. What are you talking about R290 and air conditioning? Well, we're not talking about split systems, but we are talking about self-contained water to air. So basically, little chillers, little hot water or cool water units that can sit outside, where we can condition water or glycol outside in a packaged unit sitting outside of the home that can be utilized for bringing in our cool or warm water. We see them for swimming pool applications already. So here in the United States, we've not adopted these into code, but it is definitely on the radar. So even this year, so this March over at the ISH trade show in Germany, almost every manufacturer was releasing their R290 heat pump systems for residential style applications.
Yeah.
So, man, the world is changing. Our industry is evolving. We just need to be ahead of it and not behind it so that we can break those stigmas when we see them. Can it be a water source heat pump as well? Yeah, Christian, that's exactly what we're talking about. So at the AHR Expo in Atlanta here this year, we seen our water source heat pumps that were utilizing A2L refrigerants like R32 are already out there. US markets ready to deploy. We just have to transition our thought process a little bit, right? Instead of running the refrigerant into the home, maybe we're just going to leave the refrigerant outside and we're going to let the equipment outside do some work for us. So yeah, we're going to see a variety of things. We're here as our community. You know, I keep talking about the village of HVAC, and I've been told here recently the village has grown to the point now where we're just a community. So we're all here to teach you about the things that are coming and to help keep you prepared. Another great reference is to constantly stay up with the SNAP approvals, right? So there's a proposed SNAP Rule 26, which we have a summary of it put together by our very own Jason Abzut, that talks about these newer levels of refrigerant. We're talking in some applications 500 grams. And a lot of us in the field, we know pounds and ounces, right? We don't always think about the gram size. So what is that? In some of these pieces of equipment, 500 grams, that's 17.6 ounces of refrigerant, over a pound of R290 in a piece of refrigeration equipment, right? So 300 grams that they're looking at, and we're talking about doors and drawers and such, 10.5 ounces. And R290 is such a good working refrigerant that we just need a few ounces in many of these applications, a lot less refrigerant than we've had in the past. So the reason we're here today is to talk about training opportunities for you in your programs. And I have to say, Northpark is the very first training company that I have seen to introduce R290 products for our labs for training on. So, Joey, let's dive into it a little bit, and Bill's going to do some demonstration, and our minds are just going to go boom over what's happening in this industry and how far forward we're keeping our training opportunities. So, guys, thank you for joining us.
All right. Well, thank you. Joey, I'll let you, I'll just be the point guy and you run everybody through it, how it works.
Good. And, before we get started, I did want to throw a few things out there about R290 that they would like to settle people. Because, when I heard, when I started getting involved, I was like, oh, no, everything's going to blow up,
Right. Oh, it's propane.
Had the same fear. I introduced 410A into the market for South Carolina. And everybody was afraid of it because of the higher pressures and thought it was going to blow up. Then there R22 guys felt the same thing when they were switching from R12. So nothing's new there. Here's the deal, though. We're going back to really going back to the good old days because, one, you don't have to recover it. You can let it go. Two, you don't have to worry about whether it goes in as a liquid or a gas. It can be charged either way. So that doesn't matter either, which is really nice.
It's not a blended refrigerant.
Nope, not a blended refrigerant. The PT chart doesn't have dew point, bubble point, all that good stuff. It's really, I think, a lot simpler. I mean, the number one thing is that when you do release it, you should always have a combustion analyzer with you and just lay it there on the ground because it drops down low.
Right.
And then a good safety practice is going to have a means of dissipating the air, especially if you're inside of a cooler or a box. Blow the air out of there, put your combustion analyzer in there, and once it says it's safe, you're good to go. So really, that's about the only thing And other than that, I mean, we're in good shape. I've seen some videos where guys didn't do that. And of course, we know the result.
Sure, absolutely.
Also, it is propane, but it is not the same propane that you put in your grill.
Such a good point to bring up.
Right. It is, but it's 90+% pure propane. What's in your grill is 80% propane, and the rest is
Like
stuff
sulfur
to make it
dioxide.
smell and
Exactly.
all kinds of good extra stuff,
Odorants.
right?
Yeah.
There is no odorant for R290, so you will not smell it
Yep.
like your propane. So just keep that in mind
Be
too.
aware.
You won't feel a leak.
Right.
Yeah. So okay, now with that said, let's take a look at this training system. This is the new training unit for R290. So Bill, you want to step over there for us and
Sure.
Can you bring us a little close to it?
You know what? I'm going to do it. You just
the beauty
tell
of these,
me, how do you like that, guys?
That looks good. We
aim her down just a little bit.
Down.
All right, hang on there. I'm going to have to spin it.
And those of you familiar with our training units, there's a variety of these tabletop units that Northpark has already been introducing. And that's what caught my attention. We're not talking about a large cooler that has very specific requirements on where we can put it. We're talking about a nice tabletop trainer where we can teach the fundamentals of refrigeration. And now we can teach how it applies into flammable refrigerants like R290.
Now, what I must say here, this one was our original one we built.
Yep.
And we don't have the red markings on the line sets to indicate that, but that's the only difference. We didn't put it on yet. It'll be red sleeves on the line set.
Exactly, which is the red markings that we'll see. So in our training materials, if you're not familiar in the training, all of our flammable refrigerants will be identified with red color markings. It's all part of that instructional material. Said if you're looking for that, I got another resource we can bring. We've even got the e-learning module on talking about these low GWP refrigerants and how they fall into the different classes and all of the requirements and specifications. So there's a lot of quality information to prepare you for teaching your students flammable refrigerants.
Right. Bill, so this is iConnect training, and everybody, if you hadn't seen it, just go to iConnecttraining.com and you can see all the different options and videos out there for it. And this one, Bill, this is the TU.
This is the 806.
806.
TU 806.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
It has, it's got a standard tin can compressor here. We are coming out with one that has a variable frequency, so we'll be able to show both of those. Also, we have an EEV. This one has an EEV as opposed to a TXV.
Okay.
So those are some of the features. Of course, you can adjust the fan speeds, coil fan speeds, and our signature sight glasses here.
Yeah.
So you can really see. I don't know if you can see. Here you got vapor, and here it's taking the trip to a liquid, right? So that's the unique thing about it. So you can really see the phase change.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we're talking about here with R290 is, breaking these stigmas that, yes, it is a flammable refrigerant, but it's a refrigerant. We talked about this earlier, Joey. When you learn the fundamentals of refrigeration, does it really matter what refrigerant is in it if we're following the proper safety practices?
Right. I mean, that's the thing is that I think this training unit will show people that you got the same saturation temperatures in the evaporator and in the condenser, depending on the application. So, we're still going to run this like an air conditioner. So we're still going to have around a 40 to 45 degree saturation temperature on the vap coil.
Yep.
And then you're going to have, 100, 110 degree condensing temperature on the condenser. And that's all we're trying to maintain, whether it's, R290 or 410A or 32 or 454B, it doesn't matter. So that really, if you follow those rules, you'll be able to follow any refrigerant in the system. I think what I like about this one is it shows that everything is still operating just like it always has.
Exactly.
Nothing has changed. We've still got a reciprocating compressor. We've got fan motors here that with this one, we can adjust the airflow across either coil, create scenarios, and they're going to see the same troubleshooting practices that we've always used.
That's exactly right.
Superheat, subcooling, the EEV operates just like any other EEV, nothing special about it. The only thing that's going to be different when we get into these other units is they're going to have, when they got contactors, they got relays, they're going to be enclosed.
Yeah.
So there's no sparking. You're going to see different types of contactors and relays so they're not exposed with arcing. We don't have that in this system at all. We don't need it. We've got it enclosed already.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I like this. And of course, we've got at least 3 versions of this tabletop out now. And then we've got a 4th one coming that's going to have an inverter compressor. It's a heat pump. It's going to have reverse valve, of course, indoor and outdoor coils. It's going to have everything in it, including R290.
Right.
So you're talking about a water source heat pump setup. That'll be about the closest you can get to one, and it'll teach you everything about it.
Exactly.
It will. Do you want me to go now to show so you can look at some of the temps and everything? Tell me here. I've got to put this up. But
so we got away from traditional gauges, brazed to the unit.
Yes.
And instead, what we do is we now will send a TPI kit that is wireless probes to a tablet. And what we got up on the screen there is Bill is just wirelessly casting.
Here we go, guys.
From the tablet to the TV.
Sure.
And he has mapped all the probes to the tablet within seconds.
So in the classroom, now we have the opportunity to have.
Are you there?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we see it. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you see everything, or you need me to move?
No, that's not too bad. We might bring up the actual gauge screen.
Oh, yeah. But can you see everything to the bottom as well as the top?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Good view,
all right.
Good view.
So
Bill's cameraman took a break, so
we're used to working solo around here.
So what we're doing? Can you see the tablet here?
Yeah.
Because I can't see the picture.
Exactly.
So what we're doing is we're delivering our whole new platform with it's going to include the tablet, include the case, and it has a hand strap, but also we're including a device that you plug into the HDMI on any TV, and without internet, it'll cast to the TV.
Man, now we're getting somewhere.
And so now you can see. Now it's displayed on the TV, and I'll be operating from the tablet. So you can walk around the classroom, and still everybody will be able to see a big screen.
Exactly. It gives us the opportunity to have one trainer, but if we have a projection device like a large TV or even just a projector, and we have an availability for an HDMI connection, we can now introduce all of the diagnostics, all the live data into the entire classroom with one unit. And then we can take turns physically working on it, helping spread our time out a little bit better. I'm all about utilizing our time as best as we can.
So the way we have it right now, you can remap all the probes as you need to if you don't have the probes on correctly. So they'll all remap.
Yep.
And then once you map them, you just simply hit next. Then you go to the profile. Now, this has already been profiles. You can see the R290.
Yep.
But if you were working another trainer, of course, you just select this and select the trainer that you're working on, and then it'll display everything as it relates to that particular trainer.
So could we have 2 separate trainers, one with R290 and one with, say, 134A or 404, and be able to bounce back and forth to look at comparisons between the 2 systems?
Well, we ship one of these with every trainer, so you'll have one with one trainer and one the other.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So now we've got the profile correct. And as you can see, it's a EEV, it's air conditioning, it's about 400 CFM and a 10 to 12 SEER, 290, tonnage is 0.33, and you can adjust your outdoor temperature
by adjusting the speeds.
Right. Okay. Because we figured wherever it's being used, depending on the lab, you'll want to put in the temperature that the lab's running at.
Corresponding, absolutely.
Okay, so we have all that. Now we hit save, and now we have our standard gauge set, right? You've got your pressures, your temperatures, and then as you can see, SLT, right? If you can see the bottom SLT, there's a little blue dot. You touch the blue dot, and it tells people
Give some
what's
definition.
SLT.
Yeah, exactly.
Definition. Joey came up with that.
Oh, look at that. I should have guessed
Look at that.
He's a tech at heart, boy. He's got our back for sure.
He's got it, man.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you an indication of standard gauge set. We wanted to keep it really simple.
Yes.
And of course, we worked so that it would be simple. Again, Joey helped us a lot with that. Now you change, and of course, now you go to your airflow measurements and your psychometrics. And that's the other screen we have.
So by using the variable speed motors, we can actually duplicate scenarios on our trainer. Say a dirty condenser. We can readjust our airflows and be able to see what it actually looks like.
I got to say this, that in the past, we would stick paper against
I don't have to bring cardboard with me.
Cardboard. I mean, I did everything possible to simulate it. And now you just take the dial and you just turn the air down and turn it back up. And you can.
Yeah. And I just did.
It's great. Oh yeah, there we go. Now, kind of hard to see from this distance, but
sure.
Hey, Bill, throw back up the gauges again.
Yep.
And then we can see it starting to change.
I just adjusted the evaporator fan speed, right?
Wow.
So, and then you can play with it, and then again, now I'm going to go ahead and put it full back up, and you'll see the pressure changes.
Now, kill the condenser airflow, Bill.
Okay.
And while we're doing that, we'd love to know where everyone's chiming in from. Hop over there in the chat message, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Let us know where you're chiming in from. We're always curious where everybody's joining. And if you have any questions about our R290 training, because it is a change from a lot of the traditional refrigerants that we work with.
Back on.
Don't want to get overpressure and go out by overpressure.
Don't want to kill our baby,
No, not this week. So there you go.
Yeah.
And what I love about this, we worked so hard to make sure you didn't have to drill down 5, 6, 8, 10 different menus to get what you wanted. So it's only 4 buttons that you push, and every profile is already ready to go. It's already set. The tablet is already set with the app. It's not something you get from the store. It's our app we built in-house. But it all comes preset. So you don't have to get on the internet, download, set an account, nothing like that.
Right.
You don't have it on. And
just connect, turn it on.
It's
and off you go.
Easy peasy.
Which I think is going to be very important when we start talking about our new refrigerants. We don't want to overcomplicate things. I mean, yes, we want to make sure we're understanding the fundamentals in our classrooms. We want to make sure that we're diving deep into how things operate. But when we start talking about new refrigerants, it's very important to be able to monitor and explain easily so that we can learn about these differences, because we're really not talking about a lot of differences as far as functionality. It very much comes back into our fundamentals of installation and best practices, right? If we're already comfortable with the proper best practices and they didn't get diluted while we're out in the field and in our career, it lays true to when we're working on even things like highly flammable refrigerants. Can you give us some recommendations when we're talking about working on these pieces of equipment, Joey?
Well, yes. First of all, just and let me point this out for you too. Look at those pressures versus temperatures. They're not that far off from R22.
I was just looking at that. It looks very familiar to me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're a little lower than usual, but not much. And look at our saturation, 41, 42, 114 on head. So that's to me, that's a great, we don't have to really learn too much different.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
As far as on the practices side, number one, you're going to have as a standard new tool is a combustion analyzer. It's just going to be as soon as you get in, and guess what? A leak search is going to be a lot easier too, because
yes, it will. Yes.
And if you're worried about it, well, if I got a whole lot, it's going to be messed up. Well, remember, we're not putting a whole lot in the system anymore, so it's not like an 8-pound charge,
this whole notion of fear of R290 when everybody has 25 pounds on their porch of propane. So
Yeah.
when you think about it,
How much
Yeah.
A3 are you sitting on in your work van on a
Yeah,
fuel
let me
tank that
walk
is
out into my back deck, and
12
I
inches
got a
from your
whole bunch
butt?
of propane out there.
exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
One of the
Um,
questions that just came in, an instructor from California says, does R290 also used as a automotive drop-in in R12s? No. So that's the thing we have to be aware that, our highly flammable refrigerants are only qualified for certain pieces of equipment. And
Right.
I will bring that back up for us here in just a second so that we can talk about what those applications are. So I'll come back to that here in just a second, so that we can show you some of the pieces of equipment that those are being qualified for. But so far, the only things that we are having, there's no drop-ins on those R12s. The things that we're seeing for replacements in automotive are our A2Ls. And in Europe, we're even seeing CO2. So Mercedes-Benz manufactures a CO2 air conditioning system for automotive. They're trying to get
Yes.
down to these low GWP refrigerants in every aspect of the HVAC and refrigeration industry. So lots and lots of changes everywhere. We just need to make sure that we're coming together and talking about these so that we're aware of what these changes look like.
That's right.
The other thing that we mentioned too earlier, just to repeat it, is that be sure you know how much refrigerant you can recover back in a cylinder if you're starting to collect it, for
Yeah.
multiple properties of a same owner, which you can do. And I really stress to have a small fan just to
For air
dissipate.
circulation.
And when you're inside of an enclosed space working, if you're
Oh,
starting to
yeah.
work in a reach in or something, just stick that combustion analyzer in there. And if it goes off, get some air moving through there, stick it back in there, and just let that be your guide as to when you can fire up that torch. That's going to be our biggie. But other than that, the practices are the same. 500 microns in a vacuum, nitrogen when you're brazing. Nothing has changed on that. POE oil, like I said, you don't have to go in as a liquid or a gas specifically, although if it's in a vacuum, you can. You just go in as liquid, it's a lot faster,
Sure.
but you can adjust the charge with gas, not a problem at all. So it really is going back a lot like R22,
Yeah.
except we don't have to. And then we go back before 1991, we didn't have to recover anything. I can't tell you how many thousands of pounds of R22 I let out of a chiller.
Oh my. Yeah, before the days it was required. So one of the
That's right.
questions that just came up was about the R290 and the applications in R290. So this is part of our SNAP 26 rule summary, which is what we're wanting everyone to pay attention to. So if we go to EPA and then we go into the SNAP policies, we're very specific on the refrigerants and what they are allowed to be used in, because they will not be allowed to be used in anything other than what the EPA mandates as acceptable for those particular uses. So we're going to see R290 in a lot of our, packaged refrigeration systems under 500 grams. And then down the road, who knows what else we're going to see. But for the moment, that is what we're looking at as our potential use of our 300-gram limits and 500-gram limits based on the type of equipment. So find that in our SNAP policies from the EPA. All right. So tell me more about this little trainer. So I love the ability to be able to show on screen what we're working with. I love the ability that we can manipulate things on the system, having one unit to do that with. Did you find any major differences in construction as you're designing our R290 trainer?
Not really at all.
Yeah.
No, it's very similar. It's very similar to, 134.
Yeah. And the heat transfer rate of R290 is extremely high. So, the efficiency of a refrigerant is incredibly good.
Yeah, as you pointed out, it does take less gas, right?
Yes.
Refrigerant.
Yep.
And that also to point out too that the reason, back to our EPA and training and 608 training, the whole reason why they're going to these A3s and A2Ls, but A3s in particular, is at first our concern was ozone depletion rate. So
Right.
410A knocked that out of the park, no
Yep, there
problem,
goes our
right?
ODP, right?
And then ODP, no sweat, and we didn't even know what GWP was. So
Wasn't even
then
focusing on that.
what are they focusing on? So
Right.
then all of a sudden they started talking about GWP, and all of a sudden, 410A is running down the back alley. And so the R290 has almost zero. I think it is zero ozone depletion, and it's I think the lowest of GWP.
Well, let's go
You
back
got
and
a
look
chart
at
there, right?
yeah, let me
Yeah,
back up real quick and we'll talk about actual GWPs that we have of refrigerants that
right.
we
I
know
think
right now.
290 is 3 and 600 is less than 1.
Okay, let me get
If I pass that quiz.
all right. So here's the reason that we've done this. You're
I
right.
did so
Back in the 1990s, when we were looking at how our world was changing, what did we talk about? We talked about the hole in the ozone layer, right? I can remember being a student in elementary and we were talking about the hole in the ozone layer and how we were going to, as a world, change this new issue with our planet. So we focused on ways of doing that. We reduced emissions in internal combustion engines. That's when we came along with catalytic converters and new ways of mixing our fuels. Remember, we didn't completely reinvent the internal combustion engine. We made it more efficient, right? And we made it less
That's
polluting.
right.
So when we move into technologies in HVAC, we started looking at refrigerants and we moved away from our ODP refrigerants and we started moving into replacement refrigerants. The thing we didn't pay attention, you're exactly right, Joey. We didn't pay attention to this one simple fact. If you look at that global warming potential on the very top, R22, R22 had a global warming potential 1,810. When we went to R410A, we actually went up in our global warming potential up to 2,088. It just wasn't the most important thing. We were getting rid of the hole in the ozone. That was the important thing, right? That was the mission that we were after. And NASA will prove and show to you that if you go to nasa.org, you'll actually find, daily live ozone records, and they'll show the depletion of the ozone layer. And we've been very successful at reducing the ozone depletion that we had, right? But then we started noticing these other things like global warming and these changes in our world environments. And we started relooking at things and we started focusing on the heavy hitters like these 2088 GWP of R410A and the 3,920 of R404A. That's why when we talk about these refrigerants like R290 and even our HFOs like these 1234YFs and ZEs, these new refrigerants that have very low global warming potentials, but they are a little different than things that we're used to in the past, right? When we talk about refrigerants that are flammable, are highly flammable, and refrigerants that are mildly flammable, we just have to know the best practices. Because when it comes down to it, and we take a look at this marvelous trainer that you have, is it really any different than pieces of equipment that we're already accustomed to?
No,
Not significantly. I mean, what are we
not
trying to do with our
not
spark
yet.
resistant components? We just don't want to light it if it has a leak, right? So we seal our components in our motors and in our controls and if we have contactors, they're just put into sealed compartments so we don't have the potential for ignition. All makes sense to me. We're
Sure
changing
does.
the refrigerant with a better refrigerant, and we're just making our system more efficient with
Hmm.
less emissions, right? That's all we're
And I was
doing.
looking up trying to find out there's a maximum number for that GWP that they want to see.
Yeah, and it depends
And
on where you're at, whether they're falling in that 750 or the 500. We're going
that's
to
what it
see,
was.
yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
see areas that are pushing for lower GWP allowances than even what the federal level are, and they're allowed to do that by states. So we will see, um, you know, uh, we will potentially see many of our HFC refrigerants like 410A and 404 going away much quicker than even anticipated. So we must get comfortable with A3 refrigerants and our new A2L generations of refrigerants. And even those are not new, right? What's R410A? It's an A2L called
Right.
R32 mixed with a flame reducing refrigerant called R125. We put half and half and we end up with R410A, right? And
Right.
A1. So A2L refrigerants have been around a long time, just like our A3 friends that we have right here.
Right. Exactly.
All right, lots of goodies, lots of good stuff out there. Any questions out here in the community of our HVACR? This kind of stuff we have to talk about. And we have to bring in our trainers. We have to be able to work on these pieces of equipment. Because if I'm a technician and I walk out into the field and I know nothing about A3 refrigerants, and I walk up to a refrigeration call and I see some red markers and I see some little triangles and I go, flammable refrigerant. Nobody taught me about flammable refrigerants.
Right. And I'll tell you this too, that the one thing I like about these trainers is that once you get it, and I've got several different styles,
Mhm.
it's yours. And so you can go and do the piercing valve on that. You can bleed out that refrigerant. You can use a
Recharge.
combustion analyzer. You
Right.
can just get the fear out of the way in a classroom or in your at your company if you're doing a training with your technicians. Let them practice on that. They do the same thing, pull a vacuum, braise it together, and they'll see it's not going to kill them. It's not going to blow up. And then they can charge it and watch it run again. It'll be just like they would do it in the field. They can do it on this training unit, and so they can practice, recovery, or in this case, just venting,
Yep.
and then vacuum down and recharging, no problem.
And that's one thing that we have to be concerned about when we are bringing in highly flammable trainers into our classrooms. Ventilation is now something we may pay more attention to. So, if we're already set up with a brazing facility with proper ventilation, we may start looking just at the locations that we're going to be doing work on our pieces of equipment. But absolutely, it's a fully functional piece of equipment. That's what I loved about it. And it's already got flare connections on it if I want to teach how to do proper flare and pressure testing.
Right.
And there's a lot of little things we can do there. Just had a question that came in here from Greg. Greg says, sorry, I missed the first part of the show. When do you think we're going to be switching to propane? Well, Greg, that's what we're here for, my friend. All of these products that you would currently see out in the industry have the potential to have R290 in them. So every one of these are products in the field currently that are using R290. So there are a lot of them. I don't even have the Manitowoc ice machine on here. That's my bad. I'll have to add that in later. So most of our small refrigeration systems, if there's fresh air ventilation around them, they're in open spaces, they're going to be using things like R290 going forward.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, goes to show why we do this, my friends. We talk about these things because they're already here. Like I said, 2016, I encountered my very first R290 cooler in the field by accident. I was doing some PMs at a grocery store that I was working at the time. So I was a mobile engineer at Meyer grocery stores for about 5 years. And when I first got there, I was doing some PMs on some freshly remodeled grocery stores and went through and I was checking out some pieces of equipment and went, R290? I'm not familiar with R290. And
Mm.
of course, my phone wasn't that smart at the time yet. So I had to go back to my computer and go, R290? What's R290? Propane? Wait a minute. I got propane in my checkout lanes. So yeah, it's been
You
around for a little
know,
while.
now that you mentioned it, Clifton, I do remember this had to be probably 10 years ago when there was a publicized drop in for 22, and it was propane based.
Oh yeah. I know where you're going
And
with that one too. Yeah.
the problem is the reason it didn't take off, everybody was scared of it. They didn't
Sure.
know, and this was just partial propane based,
Right.
but they
Just a
were
little
trying to
bit.
match. As you
Yeah.
can see, I remember when I was involved with when 410A before it came out. So I was the tech rep for Carrier, and we
Mhm.
were first promoting Puron. When I was going through the training for it, of course, I didn't know anything about it. I was 410A certified in 1997, I think it
Yeah.
was.
Early in.
Uh, didn't see a unit till 99, but uh, they said that at that time, propane was on the table to replace R22. Of course, the problem was at the time was the volume it would take to do split systems and all that,
Right.
but it
And the
was out
building
there
codes.
already. They were already considerate, and some manufacturers were using it as a drop in because, as you can see, with those pressures and temperatures, it's not that far off from 22.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Which brings up, Bill, can you tell us a little bit about this heat pump trainer that's coming through? That's going to be an R290 trainer as well. That's pretty
Yeah.
intriguing.
What I could do is take a trip.
Oh, now we're
Well,
talking.
let's do a field trip.
There you go.
Oh, I love
All
my
right.
road shows,
Let's
buddy.
try it.
I'm feeling it's going to have to be a
Go.
road show to Northpark Innovations in the near
There you
future.
go. Yeah. Let's do that.
And so while we're heading over to take a look at a R290 heat pump trainer, anyone have any questions or positive comments that they want to bring in? We'd love to know how you feel about this, because we're all
Excuse
a
me.
little intimidated by change, right? Especially things that change the job that we work in and the environment that we work around. But as long as we're prepared for them, it's not a drastic change.
Tell me if this is working okay. Is that?
Oh yeah.
Can you see it?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, that's great right there, Bill. Perfect.
Okay.
Right there.
Right.
So again, that's a variable flow refrigerant heat pump. Variable speed compressor. That's the same compressor that's in all mini splits.
Yeah, that's a rotary. Yep.
And it's a really cool rig, and our partner in France designed it.
Okay.
And it's a great rig.
Yeah.
And we're going to put these into production. I think we're going to deliver the first one in August.
Wow. And so how much refrigerant is that running on there?
I don't know. Do you know, Joey? He told us. I don't know.
He did, but it's
Probably
not like the other one.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just a few ounces. And
wow.
You know what Bill, see, if you look down there, there's a little plate that's got the little knobs down there. What I love about that.
Now I can't see, but can you see this?
There you go, Bill. That's it right there. So we actually have the ability to not only control the RPMs of the fans like before, but also we have the ability, I love this, we control the RPMs of the compressor.
Right.
So true.
So we can let it do its own thing according to the call from the EEV, but we can actually control it ourselves and show how, as the RPMs go up and down, the flow of refrigerant goes through the system changes, the amperage of the motor changes, the pressure temperature changes. We got the reversing valve there right in view, so we can teach the reversing valve. And what I like too is you can take a little magnet, put it on the body of the reversing valve, and as it shifts, the magnet moves with the slider. So there's it's all you've got everything right there. You've got inverter technology, you've got a heat pump, you got the ability to
low
switch
GWP refrigerant.
And GWP refrigerant, it's all there.
Sure.
It's really, really
and what's interesting, he came up with a great concept. Can you see this?
Yeah.
These come off. So the idea is we have these all over the trainer.
For component location?
Yeah, and then you just pull them off.
Oh man!
And put them on the table and tell the student, go ahead and label everything.
Absolutely.
Yep. Isn't that a great idea? He did that. And Lionel he's great, very sharp cookie.
Man, I love
so we've been enjoying working with him, and we're going to come up with a true variable refrigerant flow with heat recovery. Okay, so we're going to have a trainer where you could demonstrate moving heat from one room to another with heat recovery.
Wow.
And so we're going to do that. As you mentioned, the new trainers that they're doing it. Did you guys want to see any more of this?
That's good. You got me all excited, and it just brings up those interesting conversations. So I'm sure there'll be plenty to follow up with this.
All right. The idea is the new trainers. It's actually the new technology where they put the propane outside, right? It's a chiller, right? That's what it is. Yeah. It's chilling water, and you're moving glycol, and that's it. Hot and cold.
Absolutely. One of the questions just came in, with mitigation. Will we see different mitigation on these R290 versus A2Ls? And we got to remember that the mitigation that we're talking about right now on A2Ls are on residential split systems. And so that is the primary focus on mitigation at the moment. But yes, I'm sure we will see changes in mitigation if we get to the point where we increase the capacity of their R290 going forward. It's another one we have to stay up to date with our AHRI standards and what ASHRAE is setting, and we have to stay up to date with the rules, the regulations, and definitely our building codes, because that's another one that has to come into play. Is not everyone accepts all the refrigerants for all applications. So here's that link again to stay up to date with all of our AHRI flammable refrigerants and standards that accompany those. Because we're already seeing that even with A2Ls. With A2Ls, there are jurisdictions that are so far not accepting of A2L refrigerants in some of our residential split applications. So we all have different jurisdictions that are accepting and moving along, and we'll see that in refrigeration products as well, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You got a LinkedIn user question there we missed.
Oh, yeah, that is an interesting one. So does this mean that it is less carbon as per SC standard propane? So yeah, we talk about being a purified propane, and that's one I'll have to bring a manufacturer in, because honestly, I have not spent any time on the manufacturing side of our R290 to see if it is synthetically based or if it is petroleum derivative. Well, I assume petroleum derivative, but I couldn't vouch for that.
I won't say this 100% certainty, but I did speak to the Kenmore engineer about it, and I believe it is petroleum based. It's called the term I've heard was lab grade propane.
Yeah, it's got to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be cost effective.
Right.
I wouldn't think, and I guess I don't know enough.
Here's another one that came in. So what's the performance of R290 refrigerant in high, medium, and low temperature applications? Well, we can see where they are so far going into. So if I may pull that back up real quick, that is actually in the current SNAP 26 rule where those could be applied to. I don't know if I can enlarge that. So if we look at right now currently, so we have R290. Now this is the proposed rule that is out right now. So currently we're looking at R290 in retail food refrigeration, new equipment only, refrigerated food processing and dispensing equipment. And we're also seeing it in commercial ice machines, new only, that are self-contained. And we're seeing it in retail food refrigeration, new only, that are stand-alone units. So that's the importance of following SNAP, is that we can verify and validate where the refrigerant applications are going to in the manufacturing facilities. All right, lots of good stuff out there.
And the performance factor of it, I think, was he just asking? I'm assuming compared to
other refrigerants,
R134A. Yeah, performance factor so far as I've seen is excellent.
Yes.
So
I don't have any stats to be able to show that, Ignacio. I'll keep an eye for that. Keep in touch. If you want to get a hold of me, it's cbeck@escogroup.org. I'd be happy to follow up that conversation. Tell us a little bit about how do we contact you guys when we're looking to learn more about R290 trainers for our classrooms and R290 education and education in general.
Go ahead, Joey.
As HVAC consulting services, I do a lot of webinars, a lot of on-site training. I do public speaking. And so if you want to get in touch with me, you can just hit me at joeyh.hvac@gmail.com. I'd be glad to start a discussion with you. I've got a website, which is jojohvac.com. And also from there, you can go to my YouTube where I put up videos for people to see, and no charge for those. They're about 10 to 20 minutes long on different topics. So far, I had some good responses on those as well.
Awesome.
Great. And you can get a hold of us. You can look at all our product line at iconnecttraining.com. And you can get a hold of me anytime at bill@npinnovations.com. So we've got another piece. We just added a line of products called Markcraft, and we have cybersecurity, we have IT, we have green energy, solar, wind, and hydrogen. And frankly, I think that the combination of green energy combined with HVAC makes a whole lot of sense.
It's the only way to go. Yeah, we're going to see shifts in that. We've already seen that ourselves. I was just at a Ivy Tech Community Colleges, one of the Ivy Tech Community Colleges here in Indiana, that has an HVAC program, and they also have a emerging technologies program where they have solar, photovoltaic, and they have wind energy. And now we have those two departments going, hey, buddy, we should
It's
be
just,
working together because this is really all very
oh,
much about, the same or similar technologies.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful combination, really, because
Yeah.
if you're the type of technician that can work on HVAC, number one, you're an electrician. You better be, because a
Yeah.
huge bit of this is being an electrician
And a mechanic.
and a mechanic and hell, you're into physics, you're into electrical
Engineering.
engine. It's fantastic.
Are we
Really.
science math?
And so now to take the step to photovoltaics
Mhm.
and the combination, because many houses are going to take the trip to have photovoltaic on the roof.
Sure, it's
And
already
they're,
required in some counties in the United States
yeah,
for new constructions.
yeah,
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah, we're already seeing, solar powered AC, DC, inverter driven heat pump systems.
Think about it. Now you're not taking the trip to DC, up to AC, back down to DC, right?
Yeah.
It'll all go and houses eventually will probably go to DC if you're generating on the roof, right?
Mhm.
Now
we're
and let me
talking.
throw this in here before our time's up too.
Yeah.
I work real close with Bill and Lori at Northpark, and a lot of my time is with them, and they've got a curriculum coming that is really going to be good. It's going to be connected to all the equipment, and we'll start doing curriculum training with those trainers through the web.
Nice.
Right.
Got a big
And a
vision.
good deal of it is with ESCO.
Exactly. Which is
Yeah.
it's why we
So
groom
it-
these partnerships.
Right.
It's a community. We can't do
Yes,
this
it is.
individually. We all have to
Mhm.
come together to, encourage and empower and educate an entire industry. We're not talking about just the new technicians. We're talking about
No.
all the technicians in the industry now sitting here on this web going, when's R290 coming? And we go, you're behind
It's
the ball,
here.
about a decade.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a whole lot of installed base, that is the old school. So you really got to learn old school and the new
Oh.
school
Yeah, absolutely.
to be a good technician.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. One last opportunity for anyone to dive in with questions or comments. We thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing these trainers. Are you going to be bringing this one to the 2024 National HVACR Education Conference?
Oh man, we're going to have all kinds of trainers there.
No,
This
looking
included,
for it.
and you'll see the one that I just showed you, the production model. And then by then, I hope to have some interesting that. I'd like to bring the chiller, the new 290 outside, but
Yeah.
we can't have it that much inside on the trainer.
Absolutely.
But we were thinking maybe we'd have
Parking
something,
lot.
we'd use a gas that would be very similar
Yeah,
so people
absolutely.
could understand the physics of it.
Boy, I got an opportunity to talk to you guys about that. All right.
All right.
Well, everyone, thank you so much. Joey,
Thank you,
Bill,
Clifton.
you guys are just such an asset to our industry. When we look at companies and trainers and educators that just come together to make an industry better, it's a warming place to be. And
Well,
I love it. I love these friendships.
this is fun.
It is fun.
Yeah, it is.
I
I
get
love
paid
it.
for this.
Right.
I don't know about you
It
guys.
is. Yeah.
I don't know how I figured this thing out.
Yeah.
It's a great industry. Yeah.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you all once again, and we will see you next week on Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show.
Great.
See you guys.
See you later.
Bye-bye.